Have you ever had that feeling? The feeling when you're lying in bed, the house is completely silent, but the hairs on the back of your neck stand straight up. Your skin prickles. Your instinct screams at you that something is wrong. You feel like eyes are on you, watching you. You roll over and stare into the darkness. You tell yourself it's just your overactive imagination. You tell yourself the doors are locked. The windows are shut. I am safe. That is exactly what I told myself. Every single night, I convinced myself that monsters were just stories we tell children. I was wrong. The monster wasn't hiding under my bed. He wasn't lurking in the closet. He was inside the walls. He was wedged into the crawl spaces, just inches away from my head while I slept, listening to my every breath, memorizing my routine, waiting for the lights to go out. My name is T, and this is the story of how my sanctuary became a living nightmare. Let me take you back to 1986. To the outside world, my family were just a normal, quiet family trying to pick up the pieces. My mother had recently passed away after a battle with cancer. It left a hole in our lives that felt impossible to fill. My father, Frank, was doing his best to raise me and my sister, trying to be both mom and dad in a house that felt too big and too empty without her. We were grieving. We were vulnerable. And predators, they have a way of smelling vulnerability. The horror didn't start with a bang. It started with a ring. A simple phone call. A voice I didn't recognize. A guy named D. He said he was a friend of a friend, and he wanted to ask me out. I had never met him. Feeling uneasy, I politely refused. But then I asked him a question I would later regret. How did you get my number? How do you know who I am? The line went silent for a second. Then he answered. He started describing me. Not just my height or hair color. He described the exact shirt I was wearing at that very moment. He described the room I was standing in, the placement of the furniture. My blood ran cold. He wasn't guessing. He was seeing me. Terrified, I agreed to meet him once just to get it over with. But when he showed up, his disheveled, bizarre appearance freaked me out. I ran away. I rejected him. I thought that was the end of it. I didn't know that by rejecting him, I had unintentionally invited him in. After that day, the atmosphere in the house changed. At first, it was small things you could easily explain away. We started calling it the ghost. I would pour a glass of milk, turn away for a second, and when I looked back, it was half empty. My sister and I would be watching TV, and suddenly the channel would flip on its own. Not to another station, but to static or horror movies. We heard the toilet flush upstairs when no one was up there. Furniture seemed to inch across the floor when we weren't paying attention. It was gaslighting in its purest form. D wasn't just hiding, he was playing with us. He wanted us to question our insanity. We were so desperate we even held a seance. A psychic friend told us she felt negative energy in the house. She was right about the energy, but she was wrong about the source. It wasn't a spirit haunting us, it was flesh and blood, and he was enjoying every second of our fear. The pranks didn't stay innocent for long. They started becoming aggressive, violent. One afternoon, my sister and I went down to the basement. It was cold and damp down there. As my flashlight swept across the rough concrete wall, I froze. I screamed so loud my throat burned. Written on the wall, in what looked like fresh dripping blood, were the words, "I'm in your room. Come find me." My dad rushed down. He touched the red substance. It turned out to be ketchup, not blood. But somehow, that made it worse. A ghost doesn't use ketchup. A ghost doesn't write taunting messages on your basement wall. This was personal. This was someone mocking us. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Someone is in this house, right now. We ran to our father. We begged him to believe us. "Dad, someone is here. We aren't crazy." My father was a protector. He grabbed a baseball bat and tore the house apart. He checked under the beds, he checked the attic, he checked the locks, but he found nothing. The house seemed empty. Silence returned. That was the scariest part. Knowing someone is there, feeling their presence, but being unable to see them. It makes you feel like you are the one going insane. December 1986. The night everything finally exploded. My sister and I were in my room when we heard the noises again. Scuttling sounds inside the walls, thumping. This time, my father decided he had had enough. He wasn't going to just look around, he was going to hunt. He marched into my room, his face set in stone. He walked straight to my closet and yanked the door open. At first it looked normal, but then he looked up. He saw a chair from the bedroom pushed right up against the back wall, leading directly to a small utility hatch in the ceiling, access to the plumbing crawl space. Before my dad could react, the hatch burst open. A figure dropped down from the ceiling like a spider. He landed with a heavy thud, blocking the exit. It was Dee, but he didn't look like a human boy anymore. He looked like something out of a twisted nightmare. He was wearing my dead mother's dress. He had a blonde wig on his head. His face was painted in bizarre, tribal-like patterns with makeup he had stolen from us. And in his hand, he was gripping a hatchet. He raised the weapon. His eyes were wild, manic. He forced us all, my dad, my sister, and me, into the bedroom. He had total control. The boy I rejected was now a monster holding my family hostage in our own sanctuary. The image of him, wearing my mother's clothes while holding a weapon, is something that is burned into my retina forever. It was a violation of the living and the dead. In a moment of pure chaos, a miracle happened. While Dee was distracted, we managed to force open a window. We didn't care about the cold or the snow. We climbed out and ran for our lives to the neighbor's house to call the police. But here is the twist that keeps me awake at night. When the police arrived, they surrounded the house. They went in with guns drawn. But Dee was gone, vanished into thin air. They searched the house and found nothing. They even started to look at my father like he was the one having a breakdown. 2 days later, we returned to the house to pack our things. We were leaving. We couldn't stay there. But as we walked in, we saw a shadow move. He was still there. This time, the police didn't just look around. They tore the house apart. They took sledgehammers to the walls, and they found him. He was hiding in a tiny crawl space between two walls. A space so small, you wouldn't think a human could fit. He had been living there for weeks, maybe months. Inside his lair, the police found a sleeping bag. They found food wrappers, candy, and leftovers stolen from our kitchen. They found a portable radio, and worst of all, they found photos of me. He had stolen photos from my room and taped them to the beams inside the wall. He had been lying there in the dark, surrounded by garbage, staring at my face, just inches away from where I slept. Dee was eventually caught, but he took something from me that I can never get back. my sense of safety. Even now, decades later, when I am home alone, I cannot sleep with the lights off. Every creak of the floorboards makes me jump. Every shadow looks like a man in a wig. So tonight, before you go to sleep, do me a favor. Check your closet. Check the space behind your shower curtain. And listen closely to the sounds your house makes. Because sometimes, that creaking sound isn't just the house settling. If this story made you look over your shoulder, please hit like and subscribe to join me for more true nightmares. And remember, you are never truly alone.